In this video, I'll provide a demonstration of some of the benefits you can get from giving a large language model such as ChatGPT access to tools. And a specific tool I want to demo is a Python environment. So a Python environment has been available as a tool for ChatGPT for some time. They used to call it Code Interpreter, and then they went with Advanced Data Analysis module. But you can actually do some neat things with that, such as you can upload a data set directly into ChatGPT. And we can say something like load the data. It will excuse the typo. And let's take a look. So it's actually going to load some data here. And this is a CSV file, so it has no trouble loading that. And then I can ask it additional questions about the data. However, suppose I want to load this diamonds.parquet file. It seems to upload, but when I ask it to load the data into its Python environment, by the way, notice where it's loading this. So this is data that I'm uploading directly to OpenAI, and it's going to load it into something like a Docker container where it's putting this data within its mount data directory. And when it tries to run this Python code, it runs into some trouble because the PyArrow package is needed to load it, and it doesn't have that available. So we hit a limitation here. There's also going to be a limitation of data size, but more specifically, whatever versions of Python and whatever Python packages OpenAI decides to put in its computing environment, that's what we're stuck with. There's no way to control that or make any updates to that. So again, quite powerful. There's a lot of things that it can do with the basic Python environment, but there are ways in which you can extend this and also avoid having to upload data sets directly to OpenAI. So I want to give you a simple demo of what this looks like. So this is a prototype of the Radiant Data Analysis Assistant. And so I've already preloaded a couple of data sets. I'm going to start with Demand UK, and I can select which data set it has access to. And so I'll say something like what data is available. And it has information about the data set and a description of the data set that I provided. And so it gives that back to me, which is good. And I can do something here. Let's say, like, is demand large enough to warrant maybe entering into some market? So I could say something like, is demand larger than 1750? And so the way I phrased this, OpenAI's ChatGPT is going to think about the tools it has available, and it has a couple of tools available at this point from the PyRSM package. And it thinks, with this one, maybe the single mean function is the best option. And so it uses that. It's able to determine that the alternative hypothesis should be set to greater because I asked it, is demand larger than 1750? It knows what the comparison value should be because I specified that as well. And so it's pulling directly from the PyRSM package. And so I get great control over exactly what it's doing, what analysis it's running, and what output is provided. And so we also get a nice plot here. And I can now ask it, interpret the results. And so now, again, there's no data going back and forth between my local system, and you can see that it's running on my local system by the fact that it's on port 127001, which is my local system. Only text is going back and forth, although it's also formatting this picture in a way that OpenAI can read it. And so I've got some results here. Again, no data is actually transferred to their systems, and it provides a pretty extensive evaluation, including the plot, right? So it sees, if you will, the plot, and it can do an evaluation of that. Let me go ahead and change to a different data set. I can again ask what data is available. And now it should talk only about the salary data set, and it does. And so there's some information here about salary and rank, and so I could say something like, which rank has the highest salary? And so at this point it says, there's a comparison I want to do here, probably across different ranks. And so it chooses the compare means function from the PyRSM package. It specifies the variables it wants to use and the plot it wants to use. And so here's our output, including a plot. And again, we can ask it to interpret the results. So again, it's providing the output back to OpenAI. And it evaluates this, tells us the means. Again, it's pulling all of that information just from the output that we provided, so there's nothing else that's being hallucinated. It evaluates the p-values, and it says that bar plot visually confirms that full professors have the highest average salary. Let me show you one more example. So imagine that I go ahead and upload a description for, let's say, the diamonds data set, and here's the data itself. And so now I have some description of the diamonds data set. By the way, I can also look here into a data tab, and I've also specified the description there. I can sort and just look at this data if I like. But let's go back to the chat. And now let's say I want to run a regression with price as the response. And let's see what variables are available in diamonds. Let's say the number of carats as the explanatory variable. So let's do that. Estimate a model with price as the response and carat as the explanatory variable. No need for a question mark there, so another typo. And so it seems to do that just fine. Now suppose I want to add some variables. So let's say add clarity and color to the model. Goes ahead and does that. And I can again say interpret the results. Just taking a second to think that over. So let's take a look at the results. And so using price as the response, clarity, talks about the intercept, clarity itself, different variables, talks about the R squared. And one thing that I like in particular is that it mentions explicitly holding all other variables constant.